is the Flex Network. Flex on everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Flex Network. I'm your host, Flex Shane. You can follow me on Twitter at the Flex Network 1. I'm joined once again by, I'm going to call him my new partner because honestly, Brandon, he's old news now. Mike Dickinson. You can follow him on Twitter at Mike_Dickinson. Mike, what the hell is going on, brother?
Dude, we got a banger of a slate this week. There's a lot of games with some high projected play output. And there's one dog that you kind of want to stay away from, but I don't want to jump the shark.
Ugh, dog with fleas. It's just going to be depressing. Spoiler alert, all you Seattle Seahawks fans, the dawn is not quite here yet because it is still the dead of night.
That's why Brandon's not here this week.
That's pretty much why he's not here. Exactly. Exactly. So we'll get the slate started out here just because there's a lot to talk about. And so this week it is interesting. So for those of you who are starting your fantasy playoffs this week, y'all made a mistake in your league. That is bad. That is bad practice. Blame your commissioner. Unacceptable because you got the Colts with, of course, the RB1 in the season, Mr. Jonathan Taylor. He's on bye. You've got my beautiful, beloved Patriots on bye, but I mean, from a fantasy perspective, not really a big deal.
Oh, wait, I have a delicious fantasy nugget on the Patriots. Kendrick Bourne trails T. Higgins by 0.2 PPR points this season. He has 7 more points than Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore.
That is shocking.
Add Kendrick Bourne to your bench and ride him all the way to championships, ladies and gentlemen.
That is a shocking stat line that I would not have realized. So thank you for bringing that up to our attention, Mike, because my goodness, how far
I didn't either. I didn't realize it either. I stumbled upon it.
Yeah, that's crazy, Twitter. Man. Gotta love fantasy Twitter. Jalen Hurts, of course, the Eagles on bye. And then Myles Gaskin on the COVID list, but we don't care because the Dolphins are on bye. So there's 4 teams, legitimately like some viable, important fantasy starters. So, man, between that and injuries this week, it's going to be interesting. Rest in peace, anybody who had the Detroit Lions backfield. We got Bali, yeah, welcome, brother. We got Mike. Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning, boys. Thank you very much. Oh no, Bali needs some serious help. We're here to help, brother. We're here to help.
That is what we're here for.
Tell us how. Just tell us how. So there are some interesting games. So typically we're pretty methodical. We're going alphabetical, but I want to start with a hot game first. And coincidentally, it's also it's the Monday night game, which is why we typically wouldn't talk about it till the end. But alphabetically, Arizona Cardinals going up against the LA Rams. This is going to be a massive game. I love this game for Monday night. It's going to be a lot of fun. It is a 51.5 over-under, and the Cards are favored by 2.5 points. I mean, this game is huge for both of these teams, both from an NFL perspective, but also from a fantasy perspective. So, first of all, ladies and gentlemen, Kyler Murray is back. Last week, he put up a monster 31-point game, including 10 carries for 59 yards and 2 touchdowns. Seems like all his wide receivers are healthy right now. Are we confident starting pretty much anybody and everybody? Maybe not Rondale Moore, but from a wide receiver perspective, what do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I think you can. I just think you have to temper your expectations. So it seems that this season, I think we were all hoping that D-Hop would continue to get that target volume and would continue with that output, make him a locked and loaded top-end wide receiver 1 all season. It just kind of hasn't been there. I think you have to be a little more realistic about it. He's a low-end 1, high-end 2 that's been a little bit touchdown dependent. So I definitely plug him in. With where you drafted him, you probably don't have better options, especially with injuries, COVID bye, everything like that. But you got to temper your expectations and then set the rest of your lineup accordingly.
Yeah, well, what's interesting is Christian Kirk is finally starting to come out. I mean, I would call this a breakout season for Christian Kirk, which we love. But DeAndre Hopkins, he was used to getting 25 to 30% of that target share, which, as we talked about before, if you want to have an elite target share, it's pretty much north of 25%. He's been closer to 17, 18, 19% on the season, which is, I would dare to say, almost a career low for this guy. And we've seen him be productive with crappy quarterbacks in the past. Why? Because they fed him volume. I'm sure that DeAndre Hopkins would much rather be on a winning team with a more balanced offense than being the dog. So I'm not too worried about that. My question to you, Mike Dickinson, we ask every week because this is officially the James Conner watch. Chase Edmonds, He is designated to return off IR. He's expected to play Monday night. You're, of course, going to play James Conner just because all he does is get into the end zone. But are you comfortable starting Chase Edmonds, likely in a flex position this week?
No.
Interesting.
I've never been a Chase Edmonds guy.
Okay.
I thought that his the RB, anytime he put up RB1 numbers, it was in limited role, limited capacity. I don't know what that backfield's going to look like with him coming back. I don't feel great about it. The Rams are extremely tough against running backs. They don't give up much in the passing game to running backs, and they are second in DVOA against the run on the ground. So it's a bad spot for both of those running backs. I would have Connor in the low end RB2 flex spot, and I would kind of, if you have to play Edmonds, go ahead and do it. But I would temper expectations big time.
I think that's really smart because, I mean, how Chase Edmonds makes his hay is through the receiving game, and the fact that the Rams can defend that, it is worrisome. What about on the LA side? I mean, everybody looks good. Odell Beckham, he caught the touchdown last week. All is good in Los Angeles again. Mike.
Yes, and I have an official flex play coming out of Los Angeles.
Let's go. Oh, hold on
Van Jefferson. Van Jefferson is one of my.
No, hold that thought because we got a flex play. Mike, did you say you had a flex play?
I think I did. And now that the drop has happened, it can be official. We can get it. We can get it on the book. We can get it in the books. Yeah, I'm officially endorsing Van Jefferson as my first flex play. Over the last 4 games, he is averaging 8 targets per game. He is wide receiver 26. He has 9 red zone targets and is garnering a 28.8% target share. So I feel good. I feel good about all those numbers. I don't know if you saw there was I don't know if he was mic'd up or if McVay was mic'd up, but there was a video that was circulating of McVay telling him how proud he was, and Van Jefferson saying, "Thanks for believing in me. Thanks for having my back." So it seemed like there is a lot of goodwill between the coaching staff, the quarterback, and Van Jefferson in particular. Obviously, Kupp's going to get fed. OBJ is getting his looks, but Van Jefferson is definitely a talent on the rise.
The thing about Van Jefferson is that he was injured throughout the scouting process, but he did play at the Senior Bowl. And they have Zebra Technologies. And I was actually just listening to Jim Nagy on the radio, who is the, I think, senior director of the Senior Bowl. And he was clocking around 22 miles per hour in his pads with Zebra Technologies during the games. So even though this guy didn't test, we know that he's quick. And I mean, look, you just have to watch him to believe it, right? I mean, he's out there, he's stretching the field. Look, I still believe that Robert Woods is a more complete wide receiver than Odell Beckham, but man, Odell is what they needed. The timing was perfect for when Robert Woods, I mean, if you can call it perfect, got hurt. That offense looks good again. Daryl Henderson, though, this is a little bit interesting, right? We don't know what's going to happen with him, if he's going to play or not. He's questionable officially. Last week, Sony Michel was amazing. Some local beat reporters are saying that they think that they're going to use a heavy formation this week, which would kind of make sense, right? You want to keep a player like Kyler Murray off the field. Does that worry you? Do you have any sort of confidence starting Daryl Henderson, especially with the late game, or how are you handling that one, Mike?
Having it Monday night makes it really, really dicey. So hopefully you've been following along. You have Daryl Henderson and you have him handcuffed with Sony Michel. So, you can, we got some great insight from, I guess it was from Jay Glazer, who said that Henderson was going to be active, but he was going to be in a kind of a backup emergency role, that Michel was going to get the bulk of the work, which he did. That came through. So hopefully you have both of those guys and you can get some insight. If you have Henderson, I think you got to watch the injury report today. They are Monday night, so they'll practice today. They'll have a final practice report today. Keep an eye on that. See, I doubt he's going to go from limited up to full. What you hope is that he doesn't suffer a setback and then drop down to a DNP. Then it gets really, really dicey. I think you can. Well,
Adam Schefter always has that dump, right? On it's basically pretty much comes out Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Normally he'll have updates for the Monday games. Hopefully we get some clarity there.
Yeah. I think if you have to, I think that both of them are flex worthy. So if they're both playing, I think that what you'll see is you'll probably see them, if they are going to go heavy bulk of the time, which makes sense. You want to keep Kyler on the other sideline. You'll see them both in there. You'll see them both get touches. You'll both get work. And in a PPR setup, they could easily both get 12 to 14 points for you.
I've been trying to ship off Sony Michel in one of my dynasty leagues for literally 2 seasons, and like I can't get a 5th round pick for this guy. I so in this one in particular, we don't have a trade deadline, so it's all everything's available. I'm not in the playoffs, so I'm firmly like, all right, let's see if I can get rid of Sony Michel. Still, absolutely zero biters. It's painful. Jennifer, good morning. It is crazy, man. People are so damn cheap. It upsets me. I would take a 4th, man. Dynasty Dirtballs. I would take a 4th. Hear it here. Mike Yeager, who's in that league. I will take a 4th. I've been actually trying to sell Mike, and Mike's been shaming me. So, Mike, what's going on, brother? Okay, let's move on to the next game. Unless you got anything else to say about this game? I think it's going to be an exciting game. So I would like that one's going to be a good one, I think.
Yes. Nope, that's it. That was all I had.
All right.
Oh, so lower your expectations for Ertz. There's probably better streamers on your waiver wire. LA is tough against the tight end.
That's a good call. He's been pretty disappointing. He's pretty much touchdown or bust at this point, and there's just so many other options that you spin the roulette wheel, man. It's not really safe. Give me a 6 for Sony Michel, of course. By the way, am I lagging or are you lagging?
I think I'm lagging.
Okay, no, it's all good. We'll keep plugging away here. So, I also, after we talk about this super fun, exciting game, I want to talk about a game that, frankly, it's disappointing. It's an embarrassment. It's 2 college level teams at best that are competing against each other. I'm talking, of course, about the Seattle Seahawks at Houston Texans. Ooh. It's a 41-point over/under, and Seattle's an 8-point favorite. That is absolutely brutal. So we were talking about this game before the show started. So I'm going to let you talk about the expected plays per game.
Yeah, so this is truly brutal. You're looking at under 110 plays. Last 4 games, Houston is averaging just below 56 plays per game, and Seattle is averaging 54. That's absolutely insane. Honestly, I think Pete Carroll wishes he could run every single game the way that Bill Belichick ran his game on Monday night. He would love to throw 3 times a game and just run.
That was Pete Carroll's wet dream, man. That was hilarious.
It really was.
Yeah. So for some context, Seattle is literally dead last in the league, number 32 out of 32 teams, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of plays per game. Second to dead last at 31 is the Houston Texans. So by comparison, the number 1 team is Baltimore. They run 71 plays a game. That's almost 20 more plays a game. That is important. That is significant. And look, from the Seattle standpoint, I understand the idea that you want to run the ball. But when you're dealing with Alex Collins, because look, the old man Adrian Peterson is doing nothing. Travis Homer's out. They have a decent running back with DJ Dallas. They don't really ever seem to want to use him though.
Peterson's out this week too.
Yeah, with the back, I guess he was carrying them too much on his back last week. That he had the lower back injury this week. Man, listen. Okay, here's the thing though, right? Seattle is still number 4 against running backs, which means potentially Alex Collins could get his way into an end zone. They're a middling team for the wide receivers, though. DK Metcalf, they came out and they said he needs to get more targets. Like, you're starting him, but do you have like any shred of confidence whatsoever starting any of these Seattle Seahawks players, or frankly the Houston Texans players?
The Houston players, absolutely not. Cully came out and said that Tyrod is going to the bench for the rest of the season, so they want to get an extended look at Davis Mills, which I don't necessarily know why you need to get an extended look at Davis Mills. I think you kind of realized what you had in him that stint.
Well, he's still a rookie though, man. Like we can't look just like we're looking at Trevor Lawrence and he's having a horrible season. I mean, look, we're going to talk about the Jags in a second here, but at least give the guy a look. Like he's still a rookie, right? He's going to make rookie mistakes. I don't think he's the answer. I agree with you there. But maybe he's got something, right? Maybe he's a bridge to somebody. I don't know. It's going to be interesting, but there's not much.
Metcalf and Lockett both have good matchups. They both have extreme plus matchups. So if you got to start them, you feel good about starting them again. But I would temper it. Yeah, I think with the quality of the matchups you do, I think that Wilson has come back to life a little bit here recently. It seems like he probably came back from that injury probably 2 or 3 weeks early, so he's just now probably feeling good about it. So I think that sooner or later you're going to see a breakout game again from him where he's back to vintage Russ, and it could be this week, with a depleted secondary in Houston, frankly a poor secondary in Houston, both of his number one and number two receivers in good spots. On the one thing on the Houston side, if you're jammed up, like if you're counting on Jamal Williams going or something like that, theoretically, one of the Houston running backs could have a good week receiving because Seattle gives up a ton of production in the passing game to running backs. Good luck figuring out who it's going to be, though.
Let's talk about that game. Let's move on to the Detroit-Denver game. It's another low over-under. It is at 42.5. Denver is favored. So Detroit, Jamal Williams on COVID list. We know that DeAndre Swift is going to miss the week because of the shoulder. We have Jermar Jefferson, and we have Godwin Igwebuike. I practiced that, and I still messed it up.
Traditional spelling, right?
It's exactly. It's traditional. It's just like it's spelled. It sounds like it's spelled. So here's the thing. These are two very different players. And what we saw was that when they were backing up, when Jamal Williams was out and they were backing up DeAndre Swift, they had similar usage. But Jermar Jefferson is basically the plotter, right? He's 5'10". He's 206 pounds. He's actually best comparable to Jamal Williams, if you believe it. But his workout metrics were meh at best, like in the 30th percentile pretty much across the board. Whereas Godwin Igwebuike, he went undrafted. He's 27 years old. This is his fourth year in the league. He's played special teams, though, right? And he's actually a great special teamer. He had a 4.44 40. He's got a 93rd percentile in his speed score, 97th percentile agility score. And he has the wiggle, right? So those stats are compliments of playerprofiler.com. But of these two guys, right, you would assume Jermar is going to likely be probably the goal line player as well as just like, the early down back. Whereas Godwin, I'm just going to go with Godwin, is the pass catcher, right? Like it's very traditional. It's very cookie cutter. If you had one guy to start and it's your PPR league, full PPR, half point PPR, who are you going to start out of these two? Who do you trust more, or neither? Are you like saying just avoid it like the plague?
If I can, I'm going to avoid it like the plague. But if you have to start somebody, I would probably tend to lean Igwebuike just because he saw work last week, even when Jamal Williams was healthy. So it seems like they're not inclined to give the DeAndre Swift role over to one individual back. And you see this sometimes where the main guy goes down and they divide up the work. So I guess if somebody's going to fall into the end zone, it's probably going to be Jefferson. But I think the more consistent role is going to go to Igwebuike. I think that they're going to be game script is probably going to dictate that they'll be passing more than they'll be running, which has been par for the course with Detroit this year.
Yeah, pretty much. What about on the Denver side, man? Very disappointing. I mean, Javonte Williams, my God, man, he did exactly what we thought he was able to do last week. He just put up an absolute monster, but Melvin Gordon is back. We've talked at length about how disappointing this passing game is. What's your take on this? Are you starting to two running backs, even though Melvin Gordon is likely going to play?
Yeah, I think I am. I'll start Javonte with low and one expectations and then start Gordon with flex expectations. I don't think that you can go back to an even 50-50 after what you saw out of the guy. No. And also,
here's Gordon's the thing, Mike. Mike, here's the thing, though, dude. Like, when you look at pound for pound, even when they've each had, call it roughly 50% of the touch share, Javonte Williams has clearly been the superior back pretty much since week 1 or 2. Like, it's been very clear and obvious. Melvin Gordon is still decent and he's respectable, and maybe just this coaching staff doesn't want to just destroy their young rookie running back just because they know that he's kind of the future of that backfield. But I have such little faith in the Denver coaching staff that they're going to actually reward Javonte for his performance last week. I mean, I hope I'm wrong. Obviously, where I have him, and I have him in a lot of spots, I'm starting him. Yeah. But I don't know, man. I feel like we need to temper our expectations as well for Javonte.
I think the one thing you hope for is that the entire Denver coaching staff realizes that they're coaching for jobs elsewhere next year, and they need to be able to display some semblance of decision making. So, when you're sitting, I'm serious though. When you're sitting,
you're right.
When you're sitting in front of a GM, and you're Pat Shermer or you're Vic Fangio, and the GM that you're interviewing with says, "Hey, after Javonte Williams put up the best week of any running back, why did you take him back to a 50-50 split? What was your thinking with that?" And unless you have insight and they could very well have insight that we don't have as to why they're making that decision. But like that's just to prove that you're right and that Gordon's your guy and you're going to ride him out to the end of his contract. That's not that wouldn't instill faith and confidence in me. One thing that I will say on the Denver side, I do have Jerry Jeudy as a flex play this week. Will Harris is the worst quarterback in the NFL when it comes to fantasy points per route run. He gives up 0.6 fantasy points per route run in coverage, and Jerry Jeudy has put up 11 or more PPR points in 3 of his last 4. Other than that, the 2 running backs, I'm staying away. I'm not crazy about Fant this week. Sutton's droppable. Teddy is droppable. Ugh, the whole thing is disgusting.
Yeah, and TJ Hawkinson is out or doubtful, so he's not going to play. This game could just be an absolute crapshoot. Avoid it if you can. Let's move on to something of greener pastures. Let's talk about the AFC North matchup, the Baltimore Ravens at the Cleveland Browns. Another lower over-under 43 points. Cleveland is actually favored in this game by 3 points. This one is interesting. Lamar put up an absolute dud 2 weeks ago when he played against them. He put up 14.4 fantasy points, which was, considering this guy ran 17 times, he only threw for 68, or he ran 17 times for 68 yards. He threw 32 times. His line was 165, 1 touchdown, and 4 interceptions. It was putrid. It was horrible. Obviously, he's throwing because they're falling behind. But when you put up 4 interceptions, like, your team is just not going to win, right? Lamar, do we have any confidence, any faith? Like, you're still starting this guy as probably a top 7 or 8 quarterback. You're not sitting him unless you've got, I don't know, Tom Brady or something like that.
Yeah, and I don't think that. I think if you have Lamar, you had to invest a little bit earlier in him because you were hoping that he would have the bounce back and be in the running for the QB1 this year. So you probably don't have somebody else behind him unless you picked up a David Carr or something like that off your waiver wire. So I think you got to start him.
Yep.
The interesting thing about this game is that the over-under is really low. I mean, you said 42.5, but they're projected to run almost 135 plays. Baltimore, their last 4 games, has run 74 plays. Cleveland's running just about 60. So it's odd. That's kind of the divergence of the over-under and the projected play total is interesting. You got to something's going to give, and I think it's going to be the over-under. I think this game's going to go way over. I think that go ahead.
So the thing is, we said at the start of the show, right? Like, Baltimore is literally number 1 in the league in terms of plays run.
Yep.
Cleveland is number 25 with so they're at 61 versus Baltimore at 71. So they're about 10 plays lower per game, which obviously makes sense, right? How does Cleveland win? They win on the ground with Nick Chubb, with Kareem Hunt. I think it's going to be a good Kareem Hunt game because, frankly, they don't have any wide receivers. Okay. So here's the question for you, Mike.
Yeah.
Cleveland, it is actually a decent matchup against the tight end. It's actually a number 4 tight end matchup on the week. Harrison Bryant, David Njoku are both going to be out for this game. Austin Hooper, in one of my dynasty leagues, I've actually secured this playoff spot, but it's really just about positioning at this point. I've got TJ Hawkinson on my bench, and I'm making the decision between CJ Uzoma and Austin Hooper, and I'm probably going to start Austin Hooper this week.
You should.
What do you think about that?
It's an awful matchup for Uzoma this week. I picked up Foster Moreau in a league where I've been streaming. So the 3 tight ends I have to choose from this week are Moreau, Ertz, and Hooper, and I'm starting Hooper. I'm starting Hooper 100%. It's a good matchup, and he's going to get all the work.
Yeah, that's the play. I mean, honestly, like, just to touch on, it's just such a shame about Darren Waller, man. Like, it's been such a disappointing season for these elite tight ends. I mean, Travis Kelce has gotten his, and he's had his games, but he's been pretty up and down, just in line with that Chiefs offense. But George Kittle missed a good part of the season, although he's balling the hell out now. Darren Waller, he had 1 good game, maybe 2 respectable games all season, and then he's been hurt. It's been frankly disappointing. Just an absolute crapshoot. Unless you've been able to go at like a Dalton Schultz or something like that, or even a Dawson Knox. It's been painful, man. But going back to this game, I think that, I mean, I'm comfortable starting Austin Hooper. What about Jarvis Landry or Donovan Peoples-Jones? Are you comfortable starting either of those players?
Landry, probably. Landry, I'm more comfortable than DPJ. And again, this depends on what you need in your matchup. So if you need floor, go ahead and plug Landry in there. He's probably going to get you 11.
Good Lord. So boring, man. It's like Jarvis Landry is going to get you maybe 10 or 11 points max, right? But DPJ can get you 20 or 3?
Yeah, see, so DPJ will get you this. DPJ has your ceiling. So if you're
Yeah.
a projected dog and you're fighting for your playoff life, throw DPJ in there. He's Baltimore secondary is extremely banged up. So if there was ever going to be a week where DPJ could pop, it's going to be this week. But like I said, Landry for floor, DPJ for ceiling. I do just want to mention that it's absolutely baffling that a coaching staff that it's experienced and seems to be as good as the Baltimore staff is, could look at Rashad Bateman, what he was doing, how he was gelling with Lamar. And then when Sammy Watkins comes back, decide the better move for our team to try to win is to give Watkins snaps over Rashad Bateman. That's baffling to me. It's almost as baffling as the Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams thing, which leads me to believe that maybe there's something that these NFL coaches know that we as outsiders don't know.
Well, okay, so last week, Sammy Watkins had a 46% snap share. Rashad Bateman had a 45% snap share. It's irresponsible. It doesn't make sense. Like, I get Sammy Watkins is a stable, I guess, wide receiver to have on the field just because he is a veteran. But we've seen it with Rashad Bateman that you can trust this guy. I mean, like, he was getting the targets where Sammy Watkins got 8 targets last week. Rashad Bateman got 1. That is not right. That is not good.
And especially in an offense where you lost your top 2 options at running back, so you're stringing it together at running back with veterans. And what
Devonta Freeman, man, give credit where credit is due. My goodness, he looks good, or at least decent, right? I mean, considering
he doesn't look cooked. He looked
cooked
last year, and he doesn't look cooked this year. Yeah, so I would just think that you would want to get as many young explosive playmakers on the field as you could, and I don't see where Watkins is more explosive than Bateman.
Well, here's the thing too, right? Like, if Bateman was like a 3rd round pick, like, you're not going to try to force this guy into the lineup. But again, Rashad Bateman was their 1st round pick this year. They obviously believed in him. Well, we've seen the talent, right? When he's been on the field and he's getting the targets, he looks good. So I guess the question is, well, they say targets are earned, right?
Yep.
So possibly he's just not getting open. We could maybe try to dig deeper into that for next week. But yeah, I'm not starting Rashad Bateman this week. You just can't trust it as long as Sammy Watkins is on the field. Should we move on? Let's talk about an NFC South matchup. We got the Atlanta Falcons going up against Carolina. It is another lower over-under, 42 points. Carolina is favored by 2.5 points. Okay, let's start talking about the Atlanta Falcons. Okay, so Russell Gage, he came off last week with a massive game against Tampa Bay, but spoiler alert, Tampa Bay is really horrible against the slot. So this week, going up against Carolina, I don't like it at all. Stephon Gilmore is likely going to cover Kyle Pitts for the majority of his plays. This one could be messy for Atlanta, man. Carolina is a kind of a sexy DFS play this week as a DST, just because Atlanta can be really bad. What do you think about Kyle Pitts, and what do you think about the wide receivers for Atlanta?
So the scariest thing about Kyle Pitts is that he's had zero red zone looks his last 4 games. So in the scope of rookie tight ends, he's having a phenomenal season. I think the fantasy industry overhyped him and wanted him to be more than what he was able to be his rookie season. It's extremely difficult to come into the NFL as a rookie and have a splash as a tight end. I think Evan Ingram, shockingly, was the last one that we saw really, really do it. So he's had his games, but I think you're tempering expectations. With where you drafted him, you might not have better options, but I think you would have to take a serious look at Austin Hooper versus Kyle Pitts this week. Like, that would be
I think that's
that's not good, but that would be a conversation that you would have to have with yourself. And
here's the thing, though, Mike. Like, I think that if Calvin Ridley was playing and on the field, it would be a much different conversation, right? Like, now, I've kind of been a skeptic of Calvin Ridley throughout his whole career. I was dead wrong. But after last year, I'm like, holy shit, like, this guy is legitimate. Like, I was wrong that he couldn't be a 1 in alpha in an offense. But I think that having Calvin Ridley on the field as the definitive number 1 wide receiver on that team would have made a huge difference for Kyle Pitts, because then Kyle Pitts isn't facing the number 1 corners every single week, right? Or like those, it's a completely different discussion, right? I think that it's obviously been a blessing that Cordell Patterson has been able to do what he has done. It's just opened up so much of that offense. But I want to see Kyle Pitts on the field with another legitimate passing option that can take away coverages, and then we can have a conversation. But trust me, I wouldn't say I was out on Kyle Pitts, but I think I have, out of my 40 odd best ball teams, maybe 1 or 2 shares of Kyle Pitts, maybe. That might even be exaggerating. So I was not in on Kyle Pitts where he was being drafted. So yeah, it kind of is what it is. What about on the Carolina side?
So
PJ
the
Walker,
Carolina,
he might be getting a few touches, but it's going to be a Cam show, right?
yes. And Cam is definitely a viable streamer. He is also, I don't know what his projected ownership percentage is, but he's a decent DFS play. Atlanta gives up the 4th most rushing yards to quarterbacks. So you feel good about that, especially with McCaffrey sidelined for the rest of the season. Atlanta also gives up a decent amount of production through the air to running backs. So, we're looking at averaging 6.5 catches and 49 plus yards per game receiving to running backs. So to me, this plays out more as an Amir Abdullah game rather than a Chuba Hubbard game.
Man,
he's probably on your waiver.
That's going to be ballsy play.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
honestly, that's one of those plays where you plug him into your lineup and you don't look throughout the game because you just pray for garbage time at the end of the game, especially if it's close throughout because Chuba is going to get work. It's going to be messy, man. I agree with you though, Mike. Like I think that Amir Abdullah is a viable, legitimate start this week because they do have very defined roles.
Week 12 after McCaffrey went out, Chuba got 1 target and Abdullah had 6. So I mean, it's laid out right there. They added him for a reason, and I think that you're gonna, it's gonna be more of a split than any Chuba Hubbard owner would like.
Yeah. I think what's really interesting too is that obviously like Joe Brady was fired last week on their bye week, so this is going to be the first week back without their offensive coordinator. So I mean, as much as we kind of have an idea what they've done in the past, we don't know definitively that that's what's going to continue, right? It just seems like such a weird thing to do at this point of the season. Like, are you going to scapegoat your offensive coordinator? Like, it's just Carolina's a mess right now, dude.
I almost wonder if they let him go so that he could get a jump start on some of these college jobs.
Well, I was looking into that. He was saying he's not necessarily planning to go back to LSU. So I don't know. Maybe he wants to be head coach. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. I mean, I think he's still talented. I don't think they should have let him go. I think that he needed more time in the league with some legitimate pass catchers, right? Like, but then again, maybe they're looking at how he used Robbie Anderson, and frankly, Robbie Anderson's been an absolute dud this year. Like, I thought legitimately, I think we all did, he'd be like a viable wide receiver 3 with potentially like wide receiver 2 upside on the season. He's been like droppable. He's been like Allen Robinson good. Just absolutely you don't want him on your team because he's just a roster clocker.
Yeah, watch him go off this week. I mean, Anderson was with Rule at Temple, so they have they're boys. DJ Moore, whenever DJ Moore's on, AJ Terrell's on more, he's going to have a tough matchup. So there could be half the time where Anderson is the best option in the passing offense. So it's going to be interesting.
It is going to be interesting. You know what's also going to be interesting, Mike? This Buffalo-Tampa Bay game. It is the highest over-under in the slate. It's 53.5 points. Tampa Bay is favored by 3.5 points. It's in Tampa, which we know how Tampa plays. Tom Brady loves playing at home in Tampa Bay. Let's start on the Tampa side. It's pretty much death taxes in Tom Brady right now, right? Like, he has beaten Father Time. The only issue here is that Chris Godwin does have a tough matchup against Teron Johnson in the slot. So that is a slight worry to me. Could be a Mike Evans game. Is Brashad Perriman back? That's my real question to you, Mike. Because you're starting Mike Evans, you're starting Chris Godwin. Are you starting Brashad Perriman?
I have on my notes that you want to stash Perriman for a run. AB may not see the field again when he gets back. He's allowed to come back week 16, but they might just keep him on the sideline. So if when AB comes back week 16, you're probably not going to start him in your semifinal. So you're going to need to see him. You're going to need to see a week out of it before you trust him for your final.
The thing is that they said last year that it's going to take one mess up from him, and then he's gone. He gets no strikes. It's just his first strike, he's out.
Yeah.
Well, put your money where your mouth is. Let's see what's happening here. I mean, if Tom wants him on the team, Tom's going to keep him on the team, I think. I mean, this team, they want to win a Super Bowl. They're poised to win another Super Bowl, and we've seen it. When Antonio Brown's on the field, he is Tom Brady's favorite target. Like, that's just how it is, right? And once you're in the circle of trust with Tom Brady, you want that player on the field. So I think that they're going to say, you know what? Forget our morals. We don't care. Antonio Brown, he paid his 3-game suspension. Let's just go. Let's win another championship. Let's deal with it at the end of the season.
I don't know. I mean, Perriman ran 40 routes last week. He was in on 87% of snaps. So it's going to be a tough call. I think if you're Bruce Arians and Tom Brady comes to you and says, I want AB back, put Perriman on the bench, you kind of have to coalesce because Tom's the one driving the car.
Yeah. On the other side, though.
This is interesting on the Tampa Bay side. So
okay.
Brady's YPA three of the last 4 games has been below 7. I think he's been hovering right around 6.9. In 3 of those 4 games, Fournette has had 8 or more targets. So Fournette's emergence in the passing game is something that I don't think any of us really saw coming. I think that the thinking was when they brought Gio in there, Fournette would be the early down guy if he won the job over Rojo, and then Gio would be the passing guy. And it's not been that way. Fournette's been on the field for all 3 downs. I think it's been good to see. I thought he got a bad shake coming out of Jacksonville. I thought that he was more talented than the way they dismissed him, and it's good to see him get his swagger back.
So in 2019, you will recall Leonard Fournette had 100 targets for 76 receptions. So we saw it on the field that he could do it and perform in that role. I love it, man. Like as somebody who's kind of a Leonard Fournette truther, and I was pushing through after he got cut in Jacksonville. It's like, oh man, this is it. This is the end of his career. I had him on way too many teams, and he's actually kind of paying off, right? He's coming home to roost. I trust Leonard Fournette. I do. I trust him like a brother. Like you want him on the field right now.
Yeah.
Uncle
Tampa trusts
Lenny,
him too.
Yeah, absolutely. Uncle Lenny's going to produce for you guys in the fantasy playoffs. So just please, I don't want to put this out into the universe, but just stay healthy, Lenny. Just stay healthy, please. Just for a couple more weeks. On the Buffalo side, though, okay. So here's my question to you. Right, this is going to be a real test to the guts of the Buffalo Bills after coming off that Monday night game, which, to be honest with you, like I was going back and forth on Twitter with a bunch of people saying like, this is an extremely boring game. I love that game. And maybe just because I'm a Patriots fan, I was, just all over it. But I just love the fact that Bill Belichick was kind of able to say, F you to the NFL. I'm going to run the ball 1 million times. I'm going to make Mac Jones throw it 3 times because this is how we're going to win the game. And even when every single play, not just this week against Indianapolis as well, the Buffalo defense knew that it was going to be a run, and they still couldn't stop it. It's trench warfare. It's old school football. And look, it's maybe not sexy, but I just liked it. It was different. It was just a different style of game. It was gritty. So is Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, are they able to go on the road into a harsh environment in Tampa? And do you think they're going to be able to compete with Tampa, or are they just going to like bend over and ends up being a Tampa landslide? What do you think, Mike?
I think they're going to be able to compete. I think the strength of what Buffalo does plays right into the weakness of what Tampa Bay does defensively. So
which is throwing the ball.
Yeah, which is just straight up chucking it. They have, even last week you saw that they should have run. They should have been able to run. That should have been their game plan, but it wasn't. I mean, the touchdown that they scored was through the air. They actually had a chance to win the game, but it was Allen and Dawson couldn't hook up. So it ultimately didn't come to fruition. But I mean, it's even in a game like that where the wind's blowing like that, they're still trying to throw it. So that gives you kind of an insight into where they're at from an offensive philosophy. I think they're going to chuck it. And I think where they're not chucking it, I think that you're going to see Josh Allen scramble more than anybody. He'll probably be the biggest contributor in the rushing game this week, honestly.
My top flex play for the week this week, we saw what Russell Gage did this week. Mr. One Cole Beasley is going to sting those Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And you know what my favorite part is? Richard Sherman was activated off the IR. He is expected to play this week, and he's an absolute sieve. So it's going to be fun, man. I think Stephon Diggs is going to have a big game. This over-under, like I said, is 53.5. I think this is going to – I'm taking the over in this game. I really am. I agree with you, Mike. I think that Josh Allen, he has the true character, the true leadership to take this team and go into Tampa, and I think they can actually get a W here. I really think they can go and upset the Bucs. I'm excited. I'm a Buffalo believer. Even though they're in my division, I believe in this team, and I think they're going to be good. So I'm liking it. What about on the running back side? Are you starting any of these running backs?
No.
It's just you're just out. You're just done.
Yeah, Breida was the only one I was holding out hope for, but Moss was active, and He didn't get
Here's the
anything.
thing, right? Well, okay, so Breida was he was getting the plays early on. The problem is he had that fumble, and immediately after he was I think it was the kick return or the punt return. I think it was a punt return, and he didn't fumble the ball on the punt return, but he bobbled it. And after that, he didn't see the field. So clearly, the coaching staff said we don't trust this guy in these conditions, and they got him the hell off the field. And then we saw pretty much Zach Moss after that. Zach Moss is met at best. Devin Singletary, the same thing. I think Matt Breida is still their best chance. And much like they can beat Tampa in the slot, I think that they're going to be able to put up points catching the ball. Now, am I saying confidently start Matt Breida? No, I'm not saying that. I think that if you need a flex option or if you're absolutely desperate, like I am in one league, I have a legitimate decision to make between am I starting one of the Detroit running backs, one of the mini Tennessee running backs, or am I starting one of these freaking Buffalo running backs? Like that's just the world I'm in right now. And I would say of the 3 Buffalo running backs, I'm probably going to still start Matt Breida. I'm going back to the well, and I'm not doing it confidently. I'm holding my nose, but he just needs 4 or 5 receptions for 50 yards and a chance to get into the touchdown, and he'll pay off that flex spot. That's it.
Yeah. Tampa Bay is 20th in DVOA against passing. They're 20th in pass defense, to running backs. So so
there you go.
Yeah,
it's not fun. I don't love it, but man, I think it's going to be a big Diggs game, man. It's going to be a lot of fun for Diggs. Shall we move on?
Yeah.
All right. So another Diggs brother, Dallas is going up against Washington. This is going to be another fun one. It's 47.5 points. Dallas is favored by 4.5 points. This is the first really true week where Dak Prescott is going to have Michael Gallup, Amari Cooper presumably back, and of course one CeeDee Lamb on the field. Dalton Schultz looks good. Tony Pollard, he ruptured his, or what is he hurt his plantar fasciitis on that big run last week.
Plantar fascia, so
tore it. Okay, so he tore it. So it's probably going to be more of a Zeke game, but honestly, I think it's going to be a fucking Dak game, man. Dak's going to go off against this putrid Washington pass defense, which is literally ranked dead last in the league right now.
Yeah, and it's a tough running back matchup on the ground. It's a tough tight end matchup. So I don't think you're going to see Schultz. If you have him, you're probably going to start him, but I would temper your expectations there. Washington does not allow a ton of passing yards to running backs, but they do allow the most passing touchdowns to running backs. So whichever guy you see emerge, hopefully you get some clarity, and Pollard's inactive, and that the work is going to funnel to Zeke. So if you see that, don't worry that you're not seeing Zeke get the run. Ultimately, at the end of the day, all you need is the stats. All you need is him to get in the end zone, whether it's through the ground or through the air, doesn't really matter. And in this case, if he gets in, it'll probably be through the air.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, are you starting Michael Gallup after his huge game last week?
I think if I'm starting him as a wide receiver 3 flex. I think that Amari and CD both have wide receiver 1 upside. And quite honestly, with the way that this game could go, Dallas is top 6 in neutral script pace and no huddle rate. So Dallas moves. Dallas is go, 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 go. And the weakness of the Washington defense plays into what Dallas wants to do. Excuse me. So I think that you're going to see them keep going. I could absolutely see Gallup, going 5 for 15, a touchdown, which, 16 points. Absolutely. I'll take that any day of the week, but I'm not going to go in expecting that.
Yeah, and here's the thing: like Trayvon Diggs has been quietly very, very good this season. He's just an absolute ball hog. I'm still starting Terry McLaurin, right? Like you're starting with confidence. He's got that massive upside. Antonio Gibson, man. Antonio Gibson, though, like J.D. McKissick, he I think he's cleared the protocol, so he might play. Or has he? Let me check my notes here. He still is in the concussion protocol, so he has not been cleared yet. That doesn't mean he can't play, but I think even if J.D. McKissick plays, you're starting Antonio Gibson. You're starting with confidence. I'm smashing him in DFS because I think it's going to be another great game. Not just because like Dallas is pretty stout against the run, but I think that they are starting to use Antonio Gibson in the passing game as well, even when J.D. McKissick was active. So it's officially AG season. This is another fun one, man. If I'm playing DFS, I'm going to have stacks in this game. I'm going to have stacks in the Tampa Bay game. Like those are my 2 absolutely fun games. And then if you're going to play the Monday night slate, of course you're gonna get some action with Arizona and the Rams. But these are the three big games of the week that I absolutely love. Yeah, anything more to say, or should we move on? Because we are running a little bit long. Let's answer a question for Bali first, though. Here, Mike.
All right.
So Bali says, I have Guyton and Galladay starting. Ugh, that's painful. Would you start any of these guys over them? Traquan Smith, I'm tempted to see him. St. Brown, probably not. Donovan Peoples-Jones, probably not. Josh Palmer, probably not. Pringle, no. Josh Reynolds, maybe. Perriman, Slayton. Man. Okay, well, let's talk about the Chargers receivers here. Are you starting Jalen Guyton or Josh Palmer?
I think it depends. We know that Allen's sitting, so Palmer slots into the Allen role. If Williams goes, you can't play Guyton. You can, but Williams is going to be featured. So
absolutely, yeah.
I think I would definitely try and get Palmer in there. The one thing that you have to look for is whether or not they activate KJ Hill off the practice squad. KJ Hill is a straight up slot receiver. So if they activate him, he could eat into that Palmer role. If they don't activate him, I would expect Palmer to play the slot role. Guyton is the outside the shot play guy. So if Williams sits, Guyton has your ceiling. Palmer would have your floor.
Any consideration of Brashad Perriman? I kind of like Traquan Smith. We haven't talked about the game yet, but Traquan Smith going up against the Jets, man, like that might be a consideration as well. I would almost start Traquan Smith and Kenny Galladay. And are we starting Kenny Galladay? Like this is all over the place, brother. Like this is messy. This is getting trashy, and I love it. I do love it, but I'm probably starting Traquan Smith here out of all these guys. The more that I think about it,
I mean, Galladay's questionable. He's probably going to go. Shepard's questionable. Slayton hasn't done anything too phenomenal.
Slayton's no.
Yeah, Slayton's a definite no. Galladay has that. He has that potential. So it really depends on what you need. If you need floor, if you need ceiling. If you need floor, I would go Traquan. If you need a hope and a prayer, you can throw Galladay in and hope he catches a long touchdown. But he hasn't been healthy. He secured that bag and then he went full Albert Hainsworth on him.
Yeah, so we're starting Josh Palmer over Jalen Guyton. Here's the thing, right? Jalen Guyton is the more athletic of these guys, right? He's 6'1", 212 pounds. He ran a 4.39 pro day with an 89th percentile speed score, 77th percentile agility, and 86th percentile catch radius. But he is the backup to Mike Williams. So if Mike Williams plays, you can't play him. He's not going to get the opportunity, in which case you'd lean more Josh Palmer. I'm not confident with it, Wally. I'll be honest with you. I like Traquan and probably Kenny Galladay. Those are probably my two top choices. So hopefully helped you out there. It's a lot of bottom of the barrel skag stuff, but kind of is what it is.
Last thing on the Washington game, Heineke is absolutely a streamable quarterback this week.
I love Heineke. Yeah, I'm playing him in an absolutely meaningless matchup, but I'm still playing him. Let's talk about. You are too.
I'm playing him. Actually, a game I need to win to secure a bye next week. So I'm playing him, and I'm fully expecting quarterback one production out of him.
Let's talk about that Chargers-Giants game then. The LA Chargers are going up against the Giants. They're 10-point favorites. Only a 43-point over/under. Let's start with the depressing side. Let's talk about the Giants. Okay, so Mike Glennon's going to start. He was cleared from the concussion protocol. There's no Kadarius Toney. Sterling Shepard is. I don't think he's going to play. It's going to probably be Kenny Galladay. It's going to be Darius Slayton. Saquon Barkley is off the injury report. It's a decent matchup against running backs. What do you think? Like you're starting Saquon Barkley, but would you consider him like in DFS, or how are you ranking him? Because is he a top 10 play? Is he an RB1 play this week, or is he like a middling RB2 play?
I think he's a low end one, high end two, with the potential to catapult himself up into that top three. He always has that ceiling.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with Mike here. Mike says it's going to be an Eckler and Cook game. I think Jared Cook is sneaky. Like, especially if Mike Williams doesn't play. But even if Mike Williams plays, I think that Jared Cook's going to get some. I don't want to say it's my lock of the week, but I'm going to say it's kind of my lock of the week. I think Jared Cook scores a touchdown this week.
Giants are The Giants are tough against tight end. They're the 12th toughest against tight end according to DVOA.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Mike. When it comes to like rankings and stuff like that, I look at the top end and the very bottom end as being like really definitive, right? When you're like, I have him like 17th, it's a 17th matchup. To me, that's average, right? And if he's average, then I still think like Jared Cook's going to be able to get some because I trust Justin Herbert. That's what it comes down to. And I trust him to use Jared Cook, especially when his boy Keenan's not there. Now, here's the thing. Keenan Allen, he likes to deploy in the slot. Austin Eckler is just going to absolutely feast this week. I love Austin Eckler. I think he's going to be the RB1 on the week. Even ahead of Alvin Kamara, I think it's going to be an Eckler day.
Yeah, so I would agree.
That's going to be fun. That's going to be fun.
Last thing on the Giants side, you're calling your Jared Cook touchdown. I'm calling Evan Ingram touchdown. Despite the egg I laid last week with my CJ Uzomah projection, my CJ Uzomah call, LA still gives up the second most touchdowns to tight ends. They're one of only 2 teams who have given up 10 or more touchdowns to tight ends. So in the absence of any other freaking pass catcher, Ingram's talented. He can catch, and he's off the injury report. He's healthy. It could be an Ingram Barkley game for you. Yeah,
when it comes to the tight ends, when I'm like building my DFS lineup, so like, okay, who's playing the Philadelphia Eagles this week? Oh shit, they're on a bye. All right, let's line this one up then. So, look, if Evan Ingram gets into the end zone, it's going to be too little, too late because if you've been riding Evan Ingram all season, there's a pretty damn good chance you're not in your playoff run. that's just the reality of it.
Well, I think the thing is though that he's probably been tossed back onto the scrap heap, and if you're desperate, if you have a Dallas Goedert on bye and you haven't been planning ahead, you could go on there, grab him for free, throw him in, get 7.5 points out of him. 1 for 5 and a touchdown gets you 7.5 points. That's probably enough to help you to hopefully help salvage your day, and then you move on to next week.
That's it, man. You do what you can. You salvage. It's just like, here's the thing, right? Like, this is it. It's all the marbles this week for a lot of teams because it's been a crazy ass season. It really has been, with just a number of injuries, all these freaking old dirt players that are coming and just reinventing their careers. It seems like you might not have any better options. That's just the reality. So why not Evan Ingram? Everybody else is coming back and showing, hey, maybe there's a pulse in this player. Let's go, Evan Ingram. I like it. Let's move on to something a little bit more exciting, a little bit more sexy. Mike Dickinson. Let's talk about those Cincinnati Bengals against the San Francisco 49ers. Now, this game I like for 2 reasons. One is a high over-under. It's 48.5 over-under, but it's projected to be a close game. San Francisco's favored by 1.5. Mo fucking T. Higgins is coming on hot. Unfortunately, it seems like, at least for now, you can't really support a strong T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. It's usually one or the other who's going to have a strong game. But this week, Cincinnati going up against San Francisco. How do you beat San Francisco, Mike?
Through the air.
That's right. So it's going to be a fun game. I think it's going to be a T. Higgins game. But, baby, I'm still starting Jamar Chase with confidence. Talk to me, first of all, about the Cincinnati side.
So on the Cincinnati side, I love Joe Burrow this week. He has.
Don't let the pinky injure you. He's throwing like normal. He says so. Don't let that worry you guys.
Yep. And honestly, I think you could see Chase and Higgins both put up wide receiver 1 numbers this week. They both have high end plus matchups. They're both going to see a decent number of targets. You got Josh Norman on one side for San Francisco and Dante Johnson on the other side, who are. Josh Norman, there was a day where Josh Norman was feared. That day has long since passed. Do not fear Josh Norman.
Absolutely. He looks his age. That's just the bottom line. He does.
Don't we all? In the backfield, Mixon is going to be a true game time decision. So if he sits, fire up Samaje Perine. Chris Evans is down with an ankle, so it looks like that if Mixon sits, Perine would get that entire workload. I mentioned this before, but Uzomah is not usable this week. San Francisco is extremely tough against the tight end.
Yeah, that's pretty apt. And Uzomah hasn't done much in the last month, so like if you're starting him, it's a prayer, and I don't recommend it. What about on the San Francisco side? So Elijah Mitchell's officially out. Are you more comfortable? Jeff Wilson has been nodded as the starter, but are you more comfortable starting Jeff Wilson, who, when he did play as a starting role a couple weeks ago, did not look good. It looks like he had oatmeal in his pants coming off that injury. Apparently, that's an Alex Dunlop ism, the oatmeal in the pants. He doesn't look good. Jermichael Hasty did look like he had a little bit more burst. Like, if you had to start one of these guys, who are you more comfortable starting?
Jermichael Hasty, just because it seems that Hasty is going to get the passing down work. Wilson also had that knee flare up again this week. So
yeah, exactly.
I don't know if you caught that in Shanahan, when Shanahan was talking to the press, he said that Wilson had the knee flare up earlier in the week, and when he does, it's typically 2 to 3 days where it bothers him. So I think that was Tuesday or Wednesday. It's still, with how he looked that game where he got the chance to start and the knee flare up, I don't feel good about it. He can still be anointed the starter, and we could see it like we saw with David Johnson 2 years ago, where he started, played one play, and then sat for the rest of the game. So
yeah,
I'm more confident in Hasty. If for no other reason, then Jimmy has to throw to somebody, and he can't throw. I guess technically he could, but he's probably not going to throw 28 times to George Kittle.
No. I mean, so here's the thing about Deebo Samuel is questionable, which would be a quick return, right? They said it would probably be a couple weeks. This would be a second week missing a game. Selfishly, I kind of want him to sit because you want him to be a little bit healthy. It's a groin injury, and so I played goalie growing up, and when I had a groin injury, man, it's fucking painful going down and making cuts and making those lateral moves. So selfishly, I kind of want him to sit one more week just so that he's fully healthy going into your fantasy playoffs. But I mean, if you got Deebo Samuel on your team and you need to win this week, you probably want him to play. So I go back and forth, but I mean, look, you're starting Deebo Samuel if he starts. If he doesn't start, you're starting Brandon Ayuk, I would say, with confidence. Brandon Ayuk is finally starting to look like kind of what we thought he was going to start the season. It seems like he's out of the Shanahan doghouse. But if Deebo plays, how confident are you starting Brandon Ayuk as a wide receiver 2 or potentially wide receiver 3?
I feel confident starting him as a wide receiver 2. I think if Deebo plays, you're going to see him in that hybrid role again, where he could have one target, a rush for 79 yards and a touchdown. But because Deebo's on the field, you're still going to dedicate secondary resource to him. So it'll open it up big time for Ayuk. It'll open it up for Kittle. I feel better about Ayuk if Deebo plays.
Yeah, so do I. Oh, really? So you would rather actually Deebo play for Ayuk?
Yeah, I think so. Just because I think it's going to take, because now you have Deebo in the backfield and you have Hasty. I think if Deebo plays, it knocks Hasty down.
Yeah, that's true. That's pretty accurate. I like that. That's a good take.
Yeah.
Mike.
So I feel better about Ayuk if Deebo goes, but even if Deebo doesn't go, you're still starting Ayuk.
Fair enough. All right, let's move on. Okay, so we went from a sexy game to just a depressingly poor game. We got Jacksonville going at Tennessee. Tennessee's a 9-point favorite. It's a 43.5 over/under. Okay, let's talk about Tennessee first. From a backfield perspective, it's Foreman. Jeremy McNichols is supposed to be back, which means Dontrell Hilliard is probably going to be relegated to the RB3 once again. Foreman looks good. So you're starting Foreman if you have him. I would say probably, if you have to start him as an RB2, you're doing it. I'm comfortable as more of a flex play. Are you comfortable starting Jeremy McNichols or Dontrell Hilliard? And which one would you rather start? Is McNichols going to come back in and usurp him? I don't know.
I don't feel comfortable starting either one of them. I barely feel comfortable starting Dante Foreman. The only reason the matchup is the only thing that gives you any level of confidence.
Yeah. I mean, he's a plotter. That's what he is. What it is. I mean, look, I'm so happy for the man because for those who don't know, he blew his Achilles on a beautiful touchdown run, and he really hasn't played much since that. Was it 2 years ago now, Mike? It feels like forever ago. So again, it's just the whole narrative of these old, we thought washed players coming into the league and having to find roles. Julio Jones is supposed to be back. You and who was it? You and Sully, you and Mike.
Chris.
You were talking shit. It was Chris.
Chris
right?
Melillo. Yeah,
that's right. I love Chris. He's just so for those. So Mike came into this league, the Banana Hammock Boys League, the Roster Whites Listener League, like a bat out of hell, man. Just coming in, talking shit to everybody. He doesn't care. He's got a hot take, and you're going to hear the hot take. Mike comes in and talks about how Julio's going to destroy Slate. He was talking big game about Julio.
No, Chris said Julio's going to destroy the Slate. I'm off Julio.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, and then you came and you're like, why would Julio all of a sudden come in after not playing at all this season and just completely destroy the slate. Like, it doesn't make any sense, but I don't know. If you're going to do it, it's going to be against Jacksonville, right?
Yeah, I think I think Chris needs him to go because we're head to head. Chris is vying for a bye this week, so I think he's trying to will it into existence. Which I got to give him credit.
You know what? Chris beat me last week. I went from second last week. Now, if I lose this week, I could potentially be out of the freaking playoffs. That is how tight our league is, and that's what I love about this league. To be honest, it's also depressing.
Here's the other thing too: is Chris has written his matchups. Chris is 9-4. He's currently sitting as a 3 seed, but he's like bottom of the barrel in points scored. I think he's 8th out of 12 in total points scored. So he's had the benefit of those matchups. So, but give him credit. All you got to do is win your game.
That's right. Oh man, so you guys had a fun matchup. People don't give a shit about the league. Well, we're going to talk about it anyways, people, because this is our podcast.
Yes,
you're going up against Chris. This was fun because you got Kirk Cousins, you got the beautiful Justin Jefferson, but man, he is Dalvin Cook, and Dalvin Cook had a fucking game over 200 rush yards. Man, Pittsburgh looks deflated. They look like they're done. That's it, man. That locker room, like everybody's turning on Chase Claypool. They're talking about how Pat Freiermuth, even though he got hit by 3 different freight trucks at the same time, didn't catch that ball in the end zone. Like, man, people are so hilarious. It's funny. But the Steelers, man, like Big Ben is not the answer. He wasn't the answer this year. And you don't have to be Nostradamus to know like this was not going to work out well for the Steelers. But Chase Claypool is not the reason the Steelers are losing those games. Chase Claypool is one of the reasons why they're able to compete in those games. So Steelers fans, just relax, okay? In the words of Aaron Rodgers, lax.
On that Tennessee game, back to Julio a little bit. I worry about an in-game setback with him, even if they activate him off IR today, and he still hasn't been activated yet. So you got to watch for him to be activated today. Yeah. The one thing I worry about is an in-game setback. He is famous for that, starting the game, playing a series or two, and then relegating himself to the sideline. Tannehill has also been terrible. I think I saw a stat. Yeah. He's thrown for 1 touchdown or less in 9 of his last 10 games. So he's a back-end QB too. In the midseason draft, the midseason league that we're in, I drafted him and Matt Ryan, thinking that I was going to ride high on those two, and now I'm fighting for my playoff life in that league. Man. I'm starting Nick Westbrook-Ikhine if
he's their wide receiver 1. He's their wide receiver 1 on that team. Obviously Julio is if he comes back, but are we confident he's going to be healthy? I'm not.
Honestly, I feel better about Westbrook. I feel better about Westbrook-Ikhine if Julio does come back. To be honest, Julio will take the attention. Westbrook gets the number 2 corner, and there you go. Have yourself a day, young man.
Have yourself a day. All right, let's have ourselves a day. New Orleans going up against the Jets. It is a 43-point over-under. New Orleans is, of course, favored by 5.5 points. What do? You start your tight ends against Philly. You start your running backs against the Jets. Who's that running back for the New Orleans Saints again? It's not Mark Ingram because he's on the COVID list. What's that guy's name? All right, Alvin Kamara, one of the best running backs in the game right now. Alvin Kamara is going to have a day, man. He's coming back. He hopefully is healthy. I don't care about this whole narrative that he can't play with Taysom Hill because he doesn't get the ball. They're going to get him the freaking ball against the New York Jets. The only thing that I worry about here is if New Orleans is trying to fight for a playoff spot and they get up big, like, are they going to just work Alvin Kamara to the bone? Like, can the Jets keep up to the point where it's a competitive game by the end? That's the only thing that worries me a little bit. But what do you think on the New Orleans side here?
I think that New York actually can keep up, just because I think with Taysom Hill back there, you're looking at a lot more field goal drives than touchdown drives. He's got that mallet finger injury, which is the same injury that kept Russ Wilson out for like 6 weeks and required surgery. He somehow is going to play through it. He who couldn't hit the broadside of a barn before he hurt his finger is now going to try and play through a debilitating finger injury.
What was it, 4 interceptions last week? I can't remember.
Yeah,
it was 3 or 4. It was bad. Oh my God! Actually, you know what? Speaking of willing into existence, I played Chris last week, and he had Taysom Hill, and that last garbage time touchdown was just an absolute backbreaker, backbreaker. But man, little Jordan Humphrey's out this week, I believe. Marquez Callaway is he active, or is he just not playing well? I mean, that's one of the reasons we recommend Traquan Smith, right? Because Traquan is definitively the wide receiver 1 of that offense, despite the fact
I didn't know Lil Jordan Humphrey was out this week. Lil Jordan Humphrey and Traquan Smith are the two. He very well could be.
Oh,
I just wanted to
maybe.
miss
Oh, maybe. No, or maybe I'm mixing it up with Marquez. But either way, I don't really have a lot of confidence in the passing game, other than the fact that I think Traquan's going to be the one, which is why I did recommend him before Bali. Here's the thing, though. On the other side, Elijah Moore, he has been phenomenal this season, but he didn't practice. I didn't see the practice report from yesterday. Did he practice yesterday? I tried to look before the show.
No, he didn't. And this year, the Jets have not played anybody on Sunday who have missed all 3 practices during the week. So it's not looking good.
Which is just absolutely tragic because last week he had 12 targets. He went 7 for 86 on a touchdown. He's the wide receiver number 4, Mike Dickinson, since week 7. He has, I would say, he's broken out like very cleanly. He looks fantastic, but if he doesn't play, then I pretty much don't trust anybody on the Jets. I like nobody, 0. Don't trust anybody.
No, I'm with you 100%.
Right. Let's move on then. Nothing more to see here, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, we got 2 more games to talk about. So the first game I want to talk about is we're going to talk about the Sunday night game first. Okay,
perfect.
Chicago Bears at Green Bay. Green Bay is a 12.5-point favorite, and it's a 43-point over-under, which means Green Bay is projected to score, and guess what? Chicago is not. MVS last week had 9 targets. So I'm comfortable starting MVS. You're starting Devontae Adams, obviously. Would he come out on this Green Bay backfield? Aaron Jones is back. Bally's asking, are we comfortable starting Crowder? You know what? Actually, if Elijah Moore, see, the thing is, Zach Wilson doesn't seem to like Jamison Crowder. Jamison Crowder is a professional NFL wide receiver, slot wide receiver. We've seen Elijah Moore play outside and not just take the slot. We thought they were going to kind of be interchangeable. If Elijah Moore doesn't play, Jamison Crowder is a viable option. But for whatever reason, Zach Wilson has not had a propensity to throw to Jamison Crowder. So I would say start him when you have to. I'm starting Crowder in a few leagues. I'm not doing it with confidence, and I am prepared that he's going to get like 4 targets just because the Jets are so bad. So start him with caution, Bally. That's all I have to say.
PJ Williams, the slot corner for the Saints, has given up 152 scoreless yards on the season. He gives up a 78% completion rate, but there's not going to be a lot of room for Crowder to operate.
So there you go. If you have a better option, you start a better option. It's a bad matchup, and Zach Wilson hates him for whatever reason. So look elsewhere, Bally, if you can. Okay, so going back to the game.
Back to the Green Bay backfield.
So Jones and Dillon. You're starting Aaron Jones, obviously. Are you starting AJ Dillon?
I think if you have to, if you're looking for a flex play, I think you could do a lot worse than AJ Dillon this week, honestly.
Yeah.
Aaron Jones is still, he's probably not all the way healthy. Even though he's back playing. And honestly, if you're Green Bay, you're looking to the postseason. You know what those guys have been able to do, what they've been able to string together the last 3 years. It's been amazing. They just keep going. They keep running the division and, falling flat on their face in the playoffs, which whatever. But for our purposes, they're looking to the postseason, which means at some point you have to preserve Aaron Jones. And which means a little more work is going to go to AJ Dillon. So Aaron Jones is a low end 1. AJ Dillon is a low end 2 flex play.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: when Green Bay gets up big, they're going to kill the clock with AJ Dillon. So Dillon, the first, call it 3/4 of the game, if Dillon hasn't really done much, don't stress until the clock's show 0, because he's going to get lots of touches at the end of the game. I think because they want to save Aaron Jones for the playoffs. I think that's accurate. Now,
I have MVS as one of my flex plays this week. Kevin King's going to be back. Yeah, Kevin King's going to be back, so you could see him line up against Devontae this week. There's no Randall Cobb. Devontae's been limited all week with a hamstring, and as you mentioned before, MVS he saw 9 targets last week. He saw 10 the week before that, so he's averaging 9.5 targets over the last 2 weeks. He is also going to line up primarily against Artie Burns, which, despite popular belief, is not a failed Long Island circuit comedian. He is an actual NFL quarterback who gives up the 2nd most fantasy points per route run in coverage.
Oh my God, Artie Burns reference. That is amazing, Mike. That is fantastic.
That's the level of humor that you're getting.
There you go. This is why the people tune into the Flex Network every single week, Mike. And that's why you are now officially part of the Flex Network, because we need jokes like that. I love it. Bringing the heat. Darnell Mooney, I'm starting him as a flex because he's just going to get the targets. David Montgomery, man, he just looks good, right? Like he's kind of matchup proof at this point. Like, yes, he might go 15, 20 carries for 85 yards and not get a touchdown, and it doesn't look amazing, but he kind of is that backfield. Justin Fields is going to start. Cole Kmet look elsewhere, I'd say, right now. What do you think about the Chicago?
Chicago side, I think in a 2 QB setup, you could play Fields. I think that he could get you some points with his legs. I could see a very real scenario where he runs for 80 to 100 yards and could potentially get the touch. It could potentially get in the end zone. So he could get you 15 with his legs just on his own. I'm surprised that Khalil Herbert hasn't seen the field more, to be quite honest. Monty's been banged up. I know that they're not playing for anything, which is even more reason to get a little bit more of a look at Herbert, preserve Monty. I've never been a Montgomery truther, but I have him in my Banana Hammock Boys team, and I missed him when he was out, and I've been impressed with him.
Do you have Montgomery? Where do you think he's going to get drafted next season? Probably like the 3rd round or late 2nd.
He'll either be the end of that 2nd tier, or he'll drop down into the RB dead zone. Probably. And he'll probably drop. It'll depend on who the coaching staff is that they bring in to replace Nagy and his goons and what their philosophy is.
I like that. You're right. Because if Khalil Herbert's going to expected to get more of a opportunity to actually play, and it's more of a split backfield, David Montgomery right now feasts because he's like the only show in town. They're not using Khalil Herbert how they should be using him, right? So that's pretty accurate. I think that depending on what we hear through training camp is going to really depend. But I could see David Montgomery going in the 3rd round. I would probably be pretty happy going David Montgomery in the 3rd round. I mean, when he plays, he's productive for your team. So I think that's interesting. Let's move on unless you've got something else to say. We've got one more game to talk about, another fun one. Shall we?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Kansas City going up against Las Vegas. It's a 48-point over-under. Kansas City is favored by 9.5 points. Could this be the week where people say, why? Why were we doubting those Kansas City Chiefs when Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and Clyde Edwards-Helaire and one Patty Mahomes have massive, massive fantasy days, Mike?
The answer to your question is yes.
Ooh, I love it.
Yeah.
Keep talking dirty to me like that, Mike. Ooh, yeah.
I think you're starting Mahomes, Hill, and Kelce. Obviously, with where you drafted them, they are your QB1, your wide receiver 1, and your tight end 1. Hill is seeing more targets per game this year than he has in the last couple of years. He just hasn't done as much with them. But I think that changes. I think that changes this game. One other note on the Kansas City side, obviously, you're starting CEH as an RB2. The last time that they played Kansas City, played Las Vegas, Daryl 1L Williams was the running back. So because CEH was out, he went nuts in the passing game. I think he went like 11 for 101 and a touchdown. Since CEH has come back, he's still been hovering around 50% of snaps. And last week he put up 80 yards on 8 touches. So depending on how this game goes, Williams could still see a decent amount of work. I think if you have to start him as a flex play, you can go ahead and feel fine about it.
That is interesting. I would have not gone that deep, Mike, but I like that play. What about on the Las Vegas side? So the Drake is out for the season. Yes. Josh Jacobs, there's been a lot of buzz this week, but it is only the 22nd ranked matchup against running backs. I get he's the only show in town and volume is king, but how confident are you starting Josh Jacobs? And then we talked about Foster Moreau. You said you'd start Jared Cook over Foster Moreau. You start Austin Hooper over Foster Moreau. Where would you rank Foster? Is he like a top 12 tight end? Is he a starter this week?
He's a borderline starter, depending on what you have and what's available. Like I said, I picked up Hooper and Moreau both off the wire, and I'm starting Hooper this week. So there's possibly better options out there.
So I can't take credit for this, but I think it was who was it? I think it was Dr. Roto talked about how it was the island of Foster Moreau. That just made me laugh. For those of you who read that book back in the 80s, it was just fantastic. That cracked me up. So I had to throw that out there. But and then what about the wide receivers, right? Like that's just
it's Hunter Renfrow could end up as the wide receiver 1 this week. I think he is going to see an absolute. Yeah, he absolutely could. He's
I guess, man, in PPR leagues strictly.
Oh yeah, absolutely in PPR leagues. Legerius Sneed is the slot corner. Legerius Sneed. Let me say that once more time for the people in the back. L''Jarius Sneed is the slot corner for the Kansas City Chiefs. He's in the slot 70% of the time. Renfrow runs 65% of his routes out of the slot. Sneed is giving up about 0.35 fantasy points per route running coverage, and it is a plus matchup for Hunter Renfrow. Just to circle back on the Jacobs thing, I think the thing that you're hanging your hat on is the fact that game script favors him either way.
Yeah.
With Drake, JD got so if Las Vegas somehow gets up early, they're going to run it out with him, unless for some reason they would flop back to Peyton Barber, which I don't see. If they're down, which they're probably going to be, Jacobs is the guy getting all the passing work. So, I mean, either way, his ceiling is probably higher if Las Vegas goes down, which Vegas, the bookmaker
probably
thinks they will.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel confident about him. I think you start him as an RB1 with confidence.
Yeah. I mean, he's a popular DFS play this week, which is why I brought him up. But it's going to be interesting, man. So that's it. We did it. We made it. We made it through here. Ladies and gentlemen, good luck. It's week 14. Hopefully you're fighting for a playoff spot. Hopefully you've secured a playoff spot. If you're out of it, just remember, set your lineup, still compete. You could play upset. You could play spoiler to somebody else. So, Mike, with that, where do the good people find you?
On Twitter, at Mike_Dickinson. Ramping up my meme and shit-talking game as we speak.
Yeah, Mike is the king of the shit talk, so definitely hit him up on Twitter. He loves to talk shit. We love interacting. For those who are still listening and watching, thank you so much for listening to the end. We really appreciate your support and your loyalty. We love you. Thank you. Thank you to all the questions in the chat today. Like and subscribe. And look, we're going to be here throughout the playoffs. We're going to start talking about rookies very, very soon. It's going to be exciting. And look, let's crush it. Let's flex on our leagues this week and get into the playoffs. So with that, Mike, thanks again for joining me today. Hopefully we can get you on before the end of the season. Again, follow him at Mike_Dickinson on Twitter. You can follow us at the Flex Network 1. For Mike, I'm Flex Shane, and we are the Flex Network.
This is the Flex Network. This is the Flex Network. Flex on them. Flex on everybody.